President Paul Biya and wife Chantal Biya back in the country after taking part in the 6th replenishment conference on Global Fund for HIV, tuberculosis and malaria. The arrival and airport audiences right ahead. The 2019 edition of World Hospice and Palliative Care Day is observed with highlights on medical practitioners caring for the terminally ill while providing hope in the face of the inevitable. The indomitable Lions of Cameroon take on the Carthage Eagles of Tunisia in a friendly encounter. Both teams are currently struggling to score the opening goal after Tunisia missed a penalty. Good evening and thanks for joining us. Those were the headlines of the 7:30 News. The presidential couple, Paul and Chantal Biya, are back in the country after taking part in the 6th replenishment conference of the Global Fund for HIV, tuberculosis and malaria in Lyon, France. The head of state and his accompanying delegation was given a warm welcome at the Simalène International Airport today. About 10 airport audiences were granted by President Paul Biya. We shall be coming back subsequently in the course of this newscast. Meantime, the World Hospice and Palliative Care Day is being observed on the theme Because I Matter, with rising concerns on managing terminally ill patients. Health practitioners say it is a major challenge assisting patients whose days are numbered. They're bound to administer palliative care and to encourage them, although they are in pain, to remain strong. Yoti Kalelisonga reports that persons suffering from cancer and other terminal diseases are catered for in Cameroon. She tells us just how.
Away from home, he finds comfort in this health center. He's 42 years old, suffering from prostate cancer. He only prays. He doesn't know what else to say. He says he doesn't know if he will live or die. In another ward, a lady affected by uterine cancer, which has metastasized, is being cared for.
We are here since September 24. She feels better because it was difficult for her to pee at first. She's living her last days, but we believe she can live longer.
This hospital records about 30 cancer cases monthly.
We're trained on how to administer palliative care. We talk calmly to them. There are some who accept the situation, others are agitated. Generally, some of these patients don't accept that they will soon die, others do. To see someone talking 1 minute who passes on the next minute hurts us.
Relieving patients of their pain is what most medical practitioners in Cameroon resort to when faced with terminally ill patients.
The WHO recommends that when you start implementing palliative care, you have to relieve some symptoms like pain, vomiting, dyspnea that are frequent in patients, because there's no law in Cameroon to help us to know what can be applied to manage those patients.
The elderly are also given special attention.
Elderly patients are prone to develop cancers and also infections like HIV, have hypertension, diabetes. Even for the patient who have terminal disease or diseases that are not curable, there's always something to do for those patients. There's no need to say, okay, since the disease is not curable, we'll leave the patient at home and wait for him to die. No.
Regardless of the challenges, palliative care remains a priority in health centers. Some even go as far as having a living room and games for the patients. Meanwhile, cherished memories of those who lived the last days of their lives with their loved ones are on display here to observe the 2019 edition of the World Hospice and Palliative Care Day.
As medical practitioners provide palliative care to patients with serious cases who are bound for the world beyond, some diehard traditionalists think it is imperative to prepare such patients for death. Anthropologists hold that some tribes and religions practice a number of rites to prepare them for life after death. Cynthia Saptala tells us more.
Death, an unescapable, unavoidable, and undeniable fact of life. Whether it be a gradual process or unexpected, the departure of a loved one remains the source of anxiety amongst those living. But in the African context and in many Cameroonian tribes, the human soul does not perish with the body. Rather, it lives on in a different world and can reincarnate in new births.
In the Negro African literature, death is celebrated. If you die at an advanced age, in tribes like the Beti tribe, they organize a dance known as the Nsani dance, which honors the memory of the death. The anxiety that stems from death is their departure from the living.
Il y a tout un trouble qui envahit.
Preparing for that is then crucial, especially in cases of terminal illnesses. Some Cameroonian tribes perform traditional rites as palliative care, same for the Roman Catholic Church, known to administer the last rites to those awaiting death.
Before the last rites, there is also the sacrament of anointing of the sick, which has stages. The priest accompanies the ill and his family, providing penance for sins and meaning in death.
Providing relief in whatever manner possible is probably the only way to ease this natural process awaiting everyone.
On to other news, medical equipment worth 200 million Save Friends has been donated to the Kahai and Yagwa health districts in the Far North region. The donation handed to the beneficiaries by an elite of the area, Mr. Boniface Bayola, after lobbying for funding from the Ministry of the Economy, Planning and Regional Development, is meant to ease their plight. Henry Tato Ekambi has the details.
The conditions under which patients in this Kahai Health District in the Mayo-Danai division used to get treatment was dreadful. Many used to sleep on mats or loins to get treatment, reason why the Secretary of State in the Ministry of Secondary Education, who is also an elite of Mayo-Danai, lobbied for funds from the Ministry of Economy to carry out this life-saving gesture.
La situation était très triste.
The situation was terrible before. Patients used to take their drips under trees. Women will give birth on mats. So we want to believe that these medical equipment will reduce the plight of patients here. With some 130,000 persons benefiting from treatment from the 16 health facilities in this Kahai Health District, the donation will go a long way to ameliorate the conditions under which they get treatment. Just like this Kahai Health District, the Yagwa Health District also received their own stock of medical equipment consisting of delivery tables, hospital beds, baby cots, syringes, and the list continues.
It's been over a week now since the major national dialogue convened by the head of state held in Yaoundé, with participants making fresh recommendations to help end the conflicts in the northwest and southwest regions. There are growing expectations that the President of the Republic will tap from the recommendations to find lasting solutions to the problems plaguing the country. Christian Chatham now recaptures the significant moments of the dialogue.
The major national dialogue, which ran from the 30th of September to the 4th of October, was a highly significant moment in the life of the country. Cameroonians from all 10 regions gathered not only to seek solutions to the crisis in the northwest and southwest, but also to address burning issues in the life of the nation. Perhaps the most significant moment in the exercise was the participation of former separatist fighters in the deliberations. Their involvement generated a lot of emotions.
We were treated as second-class citizens in our own in our own father's land or our motherland.
For about two years to 3 years, that there's nothing. So we decided to drop down our arms to come and beg you people for forgiveness.
The session was also characterized by heated debates at the level of the 8 committees set up. Participants freely discussed on topical issues in the country in all the different committees.
We unanimously agreed about decisions. With the summaries that have given us here do not reflect everything that we have said. And actually we have asked them to amend.
We have made amendments which they are going to adjust, and we hope it will be the right decisions that we took.
The closing ceremony, during which Cameroonians discovered a wide range of recommendations made by the committees, was also a high moment of the event. The far-reaching recommendations attested to the potency of the discussions.
The revision or reform of the nationality code such that dual nationality be authorized. The adoption of the principle of parliamentary and governmental representation of the diaspora.
All eyes are now turned towards the future as the country waits to discover what will become of the recommendations of the major national dialogue.
Persons who have been displaced by the socio-political crisis in the northwest and southwest regions are keen on seeing the resolutions reached at implemented as soon as possible. They who have lost family members and property and stopped agricultural and economic activity hope for the reconstruction of the region. Details in this report by Eric Langmia-Wufo.
Governor Dovlili Lafrique communing with displaced persons in Bamenda shortly after taking part at the just-ended major national dialogue in Yaoundé. Mr. Lili Lafrique tells them to join the effort to reconstruct Cameroon.
Like the prodigal son, we are asking them to ferry the message of the head of state, the message of the nation, to the remote areas of the region, asking those that are start doubting to come back from the bushes and join us in nation building.
The displaced persons said they were interested in one of the recommendations of the major national dialogue according special status to the northwest and southwest regions.
I understand will be followed by a lot of reconstruction, and where we had a lot of misgivings, they will be soothed out. Yes, and we will no longer be so worried about our marginalization.
During the occasion, 2,000 families benefited from government's humanitarian assistance comprising food as well as 10,000 CFA francs each.
In other news, an intercommunal dialogue has taken place in Sangmelima in the South region after tensions following the alleged murder of a motorcycle rider. Members of governments were joined by administrative authorities, traditional rulers and religious leaders to call for peaceful coexistence and social cohesion. Clarence Azay tells us more from the South.
Just like firefighters on a field operation to rescue a situation, administrative, religious and traditional authorities, as well as members of the elites of the South region, were prompt to save the city of Sangmelima from the happenings which have marred the image of the hospitable town for some days now. They gave a listening ear to the youth who expressed their grievances. They say insecurity is gaining grounds in the town, and accusing finger is also being pointed towards those charged with administering justice for always acting in compliance with corporate, as they are set free hours after being caught in their unlawful acts. After listening to them, the elite also listened to the heads of the different communities resident in Sangmelima. Then it was the moment to mend the broken pieces.
We've understood and we've taken the engagement that very soon we are going to come here again and to talk calmly with the youth of this division.
Sangmelima is a peaceful town, a very beautiful town, and I encourage the people of Sangmelima to live always in peace.
A huge success of the frank dialogue as the rivalry parties decided to give peace a chance.
We think we listen to everybody, and the commitment of all the committees is to start again in a good foot.
Religious authorities also prayed for lasting peace in Sangmelima and Cameroon, while the authorities visited victims of the recent confrontations at the Sangmelima District Hospital.
Elsewhere, some 1,000 young Cameroonians are currently undergoing training at the military base in Kutaba in the West region. The trainees have been presented the national flag as a symbol of their engagement to serve the nation in the course of a ceremony presided over by the commander of military schools and training centers, Major General Philip Mpai. Gu Henry Tesambe has the details.
1,003 is the number of young Cameroonians of both sexes undergoing training at the Kutaba military base as soldiers and gendarmes. 45 days into the exercise, they have been presented the national flag that they will in the days ahead be defending. The military ritual in Kutaba was also marked by the singing of the national anthem in the French and English languages, plus an oath-taking exercise by the trainees who said they are determined to defend the territorial integrity after their training with honor and loyalty.
And we are going to fight all the terrorists in our country. That's why we are here to train ourselves to become one and proud of our country.
As presented by the commander of the Kutaba Airborne Battalion, Colonel Elie Romance Menzuizo, 2 of the trainees have passed on during the exercise, 2 abandoned and 8 hospitalized. He rejoiced that they are now technically and tactically apt to defend the country. The ceremony that ended with a military march past was presided over by the commander of military schools and the training centers, Major General Philippe Mpai.
The International Day of the Girl Child, commemorated to emphasize the need to uphold equal rights for girls, continues to make news in households across the country. In the Centre region, the celebration took place in Okola, where the population was urged to shun all forms of discrimination against young girls. Marie-Claire Do Kwanchwa has the details.
Statistics from the Ministry of Women's Empowerment and the Family indicate that the high rate of early marriages of young girls below 18 years is still a cause for concern in the far north, Adamawa, and east regions of the country. Education of a girl child, experts say, could be a more effective tool to fight against such practice, reason why the 2019 theme focused on investing in the education of a girl child for an equitable and sustainable emergence.
It's a call for all the stakeholders to put in more effort so that girls can have equal access to education like boys.
Activities that held in the government high school Okola also saw the participation of Plan Cameroon.
The efforts of education in Cameroon. That has been always one of our priorities. Now we're taking it a step forward, which means that we are supporting and we are encouraging our different partners to invest even more in the young girl.
The thousands of young girls and boys who were part of the celebration left the hall with some principal lessons.
Girls and boys have the same rights, and that a girl cannot go to marriage without the age of 18.
Representing the minister, Gemba Natalie challenged all stakeholders to put hands on deck in combating harmful cultural practices that hinder girls' education.
In development news, some 17 million CFA francs has been raised for the Janvier Mongi Sosomba Academic Excellence Award aimed at promoting the development of the East region. The funds were contributed by elites of the East region residents in Yaoundé under the chairmanship of Minister Joseph Lay for the growth of the 33 subdivisions of the areas. We hear this report by Emanuela Vemnu.
They all answered the call to come together for the development of their region of origin, and in their numbers, these elites of the East region from all walks of life came, proposed ideas, brainstormed, and are determined to revamp the one-time vibrant platform for the development of the East region.
We wanted to know what can be done in terms of projects of development in all the 33 subdivisions of our region, so that we can conduct a project there.
On the spot, over 17 million francs CFA is raised for the Janvier Mongi Sosomba Academic Excellence Award to be given to best students, one of the spin-offs of the envisaged development of the youths of the East region.
We have a lot of our children who have got the baccalaureate at the GCE A level. They need to go to the university. That's why we thought it's important to do something. Today we are satisfied because it's quite important what has been collected, but we still need more because there are more than 1,200 young men that we need to help.
The initiative, which is still on its birthbed, is already building momentum with a second fundraising announced in a fortnight in Dimako.
And as we announced in our top stories, the presidential couple Paul Biya and Chantal Biya are back in the country after successfully taking part in the 6th replenishment conference of the Global Fund for HIV, tuberculosis and malaria in Lyon, France. The head of state was given a warm welcome upon arrival at the Nsimalen International Airport. As we hear in this report by Inaga Kebi, about 10 airport audiences were granted by the President, Paul Biya.
The weather was bright and the effervescence was enormous as the dance groups had a glimpse of the corporate jet transporting the presidential couple Paul and Chantal Biya from Lyon, France. It was exactly 16 hours 40 when the plane touched down on the tarmac of the Nsimalen International Airport. The same brightness was reflected on the faces of the dignitaries who queued up at the foot of the plane to welcome the chief executive and his wife, as well as those who queued up at the entrance of the presidential lounge. The President of the National Assembly, the Prime Minister, Head of Government, the Minister of State, Secretary General at the Presidency of the Republic, the First Vice President of the Senate, and the French Ambassador to Cameroon all shook hands with the first couple at the foot of the plane. Next was the handshakes with the dignitaries at the entrance of the lounge, headed by the Deputy Secretary General, Elung Paul Che, followed by that with the spouses of the close collaborators of the head of state. Then came the round of audiences granted by the head of state to his close collaborators. The President of the National Assembly, Kavayege Jibril, was the first to be received, followed by the First Vice President of the Senate, Aboubakari Abdoulaye. Then the French Ambassador to Cameroon, Christophe Guilou. Definitely, they talked about the successful holding of the 6th replenishment conference of the Global Fund. This was followed by the Prime Minister, Head of Government, Chief Dr. Joseph Dion-Gute, who must have received words of encouragement from the Head of State after the convening of the major national dialogue. The Minister of State, Secretary General at the Presidency of the Republic, Ferdinand Gongo, had to brief the head of state on the state of affairs and important documents awaiting him at his secretariat. Then came the Delegate General for National Security, Martin Bagagele. Here, focus with the head of state was on security matters nationwide. And last but not the least was the Director General of External Research, Leopold Maxime Eko. Here too, much was said on security issues. Mrs. Chantal Biya was with the wives of the husband's close collaborators in the women's corner. They too had much to share, as the women of Cameroon have been playing a key role in the informal sector to consolidate peace, unity, and harmony. After the round of audiences, the President also acknowledged the presence of CRTV's General Manager, Mr. Charles Ndongo, at the airport. The presidential couple waved to the dance groups before boarding their limousine. The presidential convoy then drove from the Nsimalen International Airport through the main street of the capital city. It was 17 hours 50 when they entered the main gate of the Unity Palace, waving the dance groups that also showed up at the esplanade of the palace to cheer them up.
As the presidential couple returned to the country, amongst the inhabitants who lined the streets to give them a befitting welcome was the Road Trade Union, which staged a motorized march. They expressed their support for the ideas of government and for actions taken by the states to bring sanity to the transport sector. Ebenezer Akanga tells us more.
The mobilization started in the Messa neighborhood in Yaoundé. The mobilization was done in the presence of the minister in charge of the trade union sector, Gregoire Onam, and Professor Jacques Famendongo, Minister of State, Minister of Higher Education. There, motorbikes, township taxis, and transport buses bearing the portraits of the head of state lined up for the start of a motorized march on the streets of Yaoundé to give the presidential couple a hilarious welcome back home following their participation at the 6th Replenishment Conference of the Global Fund for Tuberculosis, AIDS, and Malaria, which held in Lyon, France.
We should tell him that Cameroon have with him at any moment and every time, because Cameroon is one and indivisible.
With this, the long convoy of motorbikes, township taxis, and transport buses took to the streets of the capital city. From the departure point in the Mesa neighborhood, they passed through the central town, Olezwa, Mvogatanganabala, Koron, Mvongbi, Briketeri, Chinga, Lonkak, and others. The passage of the convoy pulled out inhabitants of these neighborhoods who admired and applauded the spectacle. To say it in simple terms, the streets of Yaoundé were in effervescence as Paul and Chantal Biya returned home from Lyon, France.
And out of the country, the Universal Peace Federation has called on world leaders to promote policies that enhance harmony and respect human life. At an international summit and leadership conference in Japan, the over 400 delegates pledged to combat disarmament and encourage peace efforts. Charles Ebune attended the event and now reports.
Japanese civilities first, then this. A chorus for peace from the Little Angels for Peace from the Pacific area, followed by an interfaith expression from at least 7 belief systems for one humanity.
Our Father, who art in heaven.
This is what the Universal Peace Federation stands for through the Unification Church to bring mankind together through humanism.
This event is making us more aware of the need for us to come together to work together for the peace among peoples who are God's children.
The Japan Summit and Leadership Conference held at one of the country's symbolic hotels, the Nagoya Castle. More than 400 delegates attended the Japan Summit and Leadership Conference, organized by the Universal Peace Federation, and at the end of the deliberations ended with this declaration.
What this declaration is making the point that we're facing everything from environmental challenges to military challenges or challenges to the independent nation states.
The matron of the Universal Peace Federation, Hak Jahan Moon, talking about Pacific civilizations, tasked people, especially policymakers, to denounce war and to see each other as simply human beings created by the same God.
And on to sports, Cameroon's athletes bound for the 7th edition of the World Military Games in China have been exhorted to honorably defend the national colors during the multidiscipline competition. The minister delegate at the presidency in charge of defense, Joseph Betiasomo, challenged them during a farewell ceremony in Yaoundé. Cyril Nwazeki reports that the games will run from October 13 to 28, 2019.
By singing the national anthem, these athletes consciously take the oath to defend fatherland in Wuhan, China, where they will take part in the 7th edition of the World Military Games. The 60 military officers have for the past months been training hard to ensure a successful participation at the Games.
We promise the minister, we promise our coaches that we'll bring back the victory that they have given to us. Will come back with the medals and the trophies.
During the ceremony to bid them farewell, the minister delegate at the presidency of the Republic in charge of defense reminded the athletes to merit the confidence bestowed on them.
This participation, it should be recorded, received a very high anointing of the head of state, commander-in-chief of the armed and police forces, who spared no effort to ensure the proper preparation of our athletes.
The Cameroon military team will compete in 6 different disciplines at the multi-sports competition: athletics, judo, wrestling, boxing, taekwondo, and female football. Team Cameroon will leave the country in 2 different groups. The first delegation leaves this Sunday and the second takes off Monday.
And still in sports, the indomitable Lions of Cameroon have played an international friendly with the Carthage Eagles of Tunisia, as we should be seeing in the pictures. The encounter, which is the first of the squad under its new head coach, Antonio Contesao, took place today in Tunis. The Carthage Eagles missed a penalty during the second half, and the match has just ended on a 0-0 tie. We shall be coming back to details of that match in our subsequent newscasts. And with that, we end this edition of the 7:30 News, in which you heard that President Paul Biya and wife Chantal Biya are back in the country after taking part in the 6th Replenishment Conference on Global Fund for HIV, tuberculosis and malaria. The arrival and the airport audiences were outlined in this newscast. And the 2019 edition of World Hospice and Palliative Care Day has been observed with highlights on medical practitioners caring for the terminally ill while providing hope in the face of the inevitable death. And finally, just like you watched, the indomitable Lions of Cameroon have taken on the Carthage Eagles of Tunisia in a friendly encounter. Both teams ended the match without scoring a goal. More news comes up at 8:30 p.m. with Karen Olivia Abit. I'll be back tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. God willing, stay tuned to our programs on the CRTV. Thanks for watching. Good night.